This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. I'm Evan Janssen. The show is live and broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now with our whole show available on our YouTube channel all of the time, really. Today we put the discussion around the legalization of marijuana back on the table here in South Africa. We then get an update from Pongola, where the situation is still very tense overnight. And we look ahead to another cracking sporting weekend, of course. It's Friday, and we look forward to the World Cup final on Sunday. First, though, Anine gives us a news update.
Good morning, I'm Anine Dormal. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. The Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa, SABC, has warned that the ongoing metals and engineering strike is likely to worsen performance in the sector. Production data released by Statistics SA shows a 3.7% year-on-year decrease in manufacturing production in May. The National Union of Metal Workers has in the meantime rejected employers' demand of an assurance that the union won't strike on any issue during the term of a wage settlement. The union has been consulting its striking members within the sector on the latest multi-term wage offer from employers affiliated to the union. A 51-year-old pastor will appear at the Pongola Magistrates Court today. Police are yet to charge the pastor arrested in connection with the discovery of the mutilated body of a 4-year-old boy in a church. The KwaZulu-Natal cabinet, led by the Premier, and a heavy police presence are also expected in the court. Eugene de Kock will have to wait another year before his application for parole is reconsidered. Justice and Correctional Services Minister Michael Mashuta announced yesterday that the 65-year-old apartheid-era police death squad commander's current application had been denied. The minister said the families of some of de Kock's victims had not been consulted during the parole process and said the complications in the process have highlighted policy changes that need to be made. Nearly 100 lives have been lost in Israel's air assault on the Gaza Strip. The death toll has risen to 86 since Israel launched Operation Protective Edge early on Tuesday to halt cross-border rocket fire by militant groups. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, a further 517 Palestinians have been wounded in the 3 days since the military operation from air and sea began. No Israelis have been killed by the hundreds of rockets fired from Gaza at southern and central Israel. Remember, these stories are available on our Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC News. Eben, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anine. Very good morning to you. Now, earlier this year, the Medical Innovation Bill, a bill to legalize cannabis for medical, economic and industrial purposes, was introduced in Parliament by Member of Parliament Mario Oriani from the Inkatha Freedom Party. Ambrosini, who suffers from stage 4 inoperable lung cancer, asked for the drug to be available to those with life-threatening diseases so that they can legally buy cannabis and not suffer unnecessarily. Let's just quickly look back at that clip of Ambrosini presenting the bill to Parliament in February.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, you've known me for 20 years, and I'm sure you had a few occasions to curse my name. But I'm speaking to you today somehow as a changed man, not to oppose you, but to plead with you, to provide a voice on behalf of many people in my condition who do not have a voice. Cancer is the greatest pandemic this country is facing. And people are dying of bad policies and of bad laws which we can change. There are available cancer treatments which are not made available from a legal viewpoint. And I stand here as the expression of that problem. I was supposed to die many months ago, and I'm here because I had the courage of taking illegal treatments in Italy in the form of bicarbonate of sodium, and here in South Africa in the form of cannabis, marijuana, daca. Otherwise, I would be packed with morphine and I would not be able to speak to you, Mr. President. On November last year, the South African National Cannabis Working Group presented to the Minister of Welfare these 4 volumes, which represents the proposed new policy of your government, Mr. President. What this paper, all these paperwork stands for is the proposition that there is no rational argument for continuing to deprive medical marijuana to people like me who need it.
Now, to give us a little bit more on this discussion, we're joined by William Wallace, the Operations Manager of Lobby Group Below the Line, and by Neil Kirby from Worksman's Law Firm. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben.
Neil, if I can start with you with a bit of legalese. 5 months into this process since that day now, how far down the line are we in the legal process?
Well, it got caught up with the elections, so there's been a bit of a hiatus. We're still waiting for this bill to be formalised into a process of legislative passage. It was produced as a private member's bill. It was then subjected to a period of public comment for 40 days, and we then had the elections that sort of interrupted things. Yeah. So we should be in a process now where we have that bill back in the House, and it should be back up for a bit of a debate.
Well, and what's your views on this process? Is it a bit too slow?
I don't think too slow at all. It's actually been quite fast. I think a really good positive thing that we've seen is that we've received an unprecedented amount of public support behind the bill already. So things what they are. I think that there's still a lot going on internationally, and perhaps we will be a bit cautious so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and relearn mistakes that perhaps America and Colorado and Washington are learning now. But I do think that the wheels are turning and are turning constructively.
What sort of time frame would you be happy with as the lobby group for this legislation to go through?
I think realistically, touch wood, all things going well, medical trials starting in 2015, and hopefully we will be looking at a situation of recreational legal use in 2016 as early as.
So within 2 years, what are the things or the most important things that we then need to see in this bill within this context, Neil?
Well, I think we have to be cautious of what it is that we're going to do with this bill and how broad its scope is going to be. Bearing in mind, we do have controls in law already dealing with the use of cannabis for certain purposes in the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. So we need to be conscious of what this bill is going to say and how it's going to dovetail with existing law.
Pros and cons, of course, divided opinion on this. What are you guys saying?
I think we need to look at the question twofold. We can't just simply look at where we're going. We need to look at where we've been and where we're at in terms of cannabis prohibition. And I think what it really comes down to, the simple equation, is that it's costing us more than it would to legalize it. It is simply harming society more. If we look at prohibition in the Western Cape now, cannabis has overtaken alcohol as the preferred drug of use by the youth. Yeah. We simply cannot look at where we're at anymore. We need to look forward.
Neil, prohibition doesn't work. It's worked nowhere in the world.
You see, I think it depends what you mean by work. And I think it depends on the particular society and community in which you are contextualizing marijuana use and also the type of marijuana use that you're looking at. It may very well be that in certain communities and certain societies, prohibition is a good thing. I think there's a time and a place for prohibition. I don't think that prohibition could be a permanent state of affairs, and I do think that we need to grow up a little bit about what we do with marijuana and how we control it.
I think it's very much a step in the right direction. As you mentioned, prohibition is not a permanent solution. It has been around for a century, though. I think the clock is ticking. It's time to look for 21st century solutions. We simply cannot arrest our way out of this problem.
Those that are against legalizing of marijuana always start with one point, and that is it's the gateway drug towards other drugs. What do you say to that?
We know categorically that it is not a gateway drug. If anything, the drugs that people begin with are nicotine and alcohol. There is nothing that drives a person to want to get higher or surpass it. Yes, there are people who are on a life's course where they will become addicted to substances, and because marijuana is freely available, it goes without saying that it will be one of those substances that they start with. But it does not mean that this will cause me to take heroin or snort coke. It simply does not.
There are lots of other prescription drugs today out in society that one could argue are much easier gateway drugs then.
Certainly. I was watching actually a show on SABC 2 days ago, and they didn't want to mention names, but what we were looking at is a leading prescription drug being an actual serious issue in South Africa, and you can get it over the counter as well. Whereas with cannabis, no deaths.
There's no doubt that the world is, at the moment, fighting prescription drug addiction like never before in its history. Neil, I wanted to then bring you back to the question of, once it's legalized, we've asked for this thing, but how do you manage it and how do you police it then in the end?
Those are going to be the big questions. I think they may even be game changers. It may very well be a controlled system from purchase all the way through to use, which would mean that you could only purchase certain quantities in a particular period at a particular place with a particular license. It may require that degree of control. And then I think we're probably going to have to look at whether or not we can cope with those controls as a society. So yes, prohibition might not be a permanent state of affairs, but we're going to have to watch this as well to see whether or not the particular choice that we make for control is appropriate.
What do you say are the economic benefits and then industrial benefits that people aren't always aware of in this space?
If we look at the UN's latest statistics, and this is just an assumption, so it's probably a low ball, they estimate that it is a 3.5 billion rand industry, cannabis alone, in South Africa, that is simply not taxed, not regulated in any way. Yes, I think we can generate tax, we can follow the Colorado model, direct that towards awareness programs for children, building schools, regulation and so on, because if we look at the numbers, it is simply much, much cheaper than the R250 million we spend every 2 months in Joburg just on cannabis use.
International benchmarking, what are the lessons, Neil, that we see from the latest experiments worldwide with the legalization of cannabis?
You've got two real examples if you're looking at jurisdictions. The one is the Netherlands, and the other is Uruguay. Uruguay is certainly a more recent jurisdiction for legalization purposes. The Netherlands, they're battling with control. They believe that it's attracted the wrong element, that they don't necessarily want to have it as widely available as it used to be. But then you've got a jurisdiction like Uruguay, which has taken a very pragmatic commercial view to manufacturing, growing, and processing marijuana. Now, the Uruguayan experience is one that extends our view of what you can do commercially with marijuana, and it's a pretty good-looking story so far.
Well, what are your views on that sort of farm to table, if one can use that analogy?
I think so. If we do look at perhaps the Netherlands model just for a moment, it's more quasi-legal than legal there. And I think Neil brings up a very, very valid point. They are dealing with a lot of consumption issues, but if you look at it, they're dealing with a global consumption issue where it's bottlenecking through the Netherlands, and as we're seeing it now in Colorado as well. So definitely we do need to look at that situation of quality control from seed to final product, and that is the discussion we need to be having locally.
And the Netherlands, for that matter, might not be the best example of where we need to go as a nation if we're going to go down this route, Neil.
I think that's true. I think that primarily because it's a very old system. It was one that was put into place some time ago based on what then, at that point, was considered to be appropriate. Things have changed. I think views of marijuana in society have changed, and I think what we can or can't do with it has changed. Technology has advanced to a point where we can now look at other aspects of marijuana, not just necessarily its recreational use, but perhaps its potential to produce other medicines or for extracts of it to be taken and to have those extracts looked at medicinally.
Final word goes to you this morning, William. Just give us your 5-year view and then maybe the longer-term view of this process and how you'd like to then see that play out.
I think what I would like to see is, first and foremost, let's protect the children. Let's take control away from the black market. Yes, there will always be an element of youth use, but let's not use that as a reason to make it worse than it needs to be. Let's make sure it's quality controlled. South Africa has got a massive market. We are internationally renowned for our cannabis culture. I think it is time to embrace that culture and perhaps be a world leader as opposed to a world follower in what needs to be done regarding legalization.
Do you agree with that, Neil, just in conclusion?
I do, with one proviso, and that is let's make sure that if we are going to do this, that we do it properly and appropriately. I think we have to be conscious of where we are as a society. what our current problems are and the context in which legalization of marijuana is going to be found.
Well, gentlemen, it's a discussion that I'm sure will be continuing for the next year or so. Thank you for joining us this morning from Workman's law firm, Neil Kirby, and then below the line lobby group, William Wallace. I'm sure you've heard all the Braveheart jokes over the last decade or so. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, top story. A 51-year-old pastor will appear at the Pongola Magistrates Court today. Police are yet to charge the pastor arrested in connection with the discovery of the mutilated body of a 4-year-old boy in a church. The KwaZulu-Natal cabinet, led by the Premier, and a heavy police presence are also expected in court. 15 other people are also expected to appear for a bail application for allegedly burning a church where the dismembered boy was found.
The 6th day of high tension and violence have brought this township to a standstill. Angry residents have gone on the rampage, causing massive destruction to state and private property. The community torched the local court, damages estimated to run into millions of rand. Several attempts by government to intervene have failed. Community members stormed out of a meeting. This resulted in a standoff with police. The community demanded the release of 15 young people arrested for public violence on Monday. They were later released on a warning. More police reinforcements have been brought to the area. The KZN cabinet, led by the Premier, is expected at Pongola.
Now, our reporter Yanda Mhlongo stayed overnight in Pongola to monitor the situation and joins us live this morning. Morning, Yanda.
Good morning to you, Eben.
Has the situation changed at all overnight? What's the latest?
Well, I can tell you, Eben, that last night was one of the most quietest. In fact, it was the quietest of the 6 days. It's been 5 days of violence that lasted 24 hours throughout the night. Police have been busy, but yesterday seemingly was very quiet. Although I must add that heavy police presence that you heard also there in that clip still on the ground. There's a lot of police deployments as well as the military. Eben, they were monitoring the area. They've in fact surrounded that whole township, and others were even patrolling on foot. That happened throughout the night. Pretty quiet though, and possibly what led to that was the release of those 15 young people yesterday afternoon. Community is now waiting for a further 10 that were arrested on Thursday. Now this was relating to the arson and the torching of that magistrates court, the Ngojana Magistrates Court. They are expected to appear at the Pongola Magistrates Court today. As you can see behind me, Eben, we are at the court. This morning we are expecting that 51-year-old pastor, he's going to be making his first appearance, and then later on those 10 youths are also expected to be making their appearance. But I think what is going to be happening, Eben, as we see already, there's a lot of police that are already here at court. Others are going inside just to ensure that everything is safe inside the court. What they are going to try to do is ensure that the community do not make their way here to the court. This courtroom is in town. We are about 10 kilometers away from Ngojane Township. We saw this yesterday. The police then formed a barricade on the main road leading to the township, and that was to ensure that they do not make their way here to this court. Particularly the security around the suspect, that pastor, is extremely high. Obviously, with information that the community are saying that they might harm him, and in essence, there might then be clashes with the police. So they are now setting up a barricade, and what they are going to do, and we saw this yesterday, is probably allow a couple of local leaders to then come to the court, and once they're done, and whatever happens in court, they will then request that those community leaders then go back to the community where they are, and then give them the report on what happened in court. But I can tell you definitely, Eben, a very strong police presence here at the Pongola Magistrates Court, and also in the township of Pongola, still a heavy police guard there.
Have you managed to track down any members of this pastor's church? You told me yesterday that a fellow pastor, a friend of this one, was also attacked. What are the church members of these pastors, or this pastor in particular, what are they saying?
You know, that's a very interesting question, Eben, and I tell you, a lot of the, we've been reporting obviously on the violence, but we haven't really delved into that. A lot of people have actually resulted to fleeing their homes, Eben, in fear. A lot of the church members, we understand, have now left the area. We were taken by some of our sources to some of the homes. We searched around, we knocked around, knocked on doors, nobody answered, and we can see that they've left. They did tell us that as of Sunday, now that was after the incident, after that the body parts of the 4-year-old boy were found, a lot of the church members that were living in the area were seen packing, and many of them have already fled their homes. One of the ladies that we tried to speak to flat out said that she was not going to be able to comment, and she's actually barricaded herself inside her house. So we have not been able to get any comment from anyone now who claims to be part of that church. But also, I mean, as you're mentioning there, that there were now threats that they were going to attack the church of the pastor's friend. Another church, again there, yes, they did. They smashed windows, but the police were there, so they were not able to set it alight as they had planned. We also understand that that pastor too and some of his congregants have also left the area. And a lot of churches in the area are seemingly very, very nervous at the same time. There is also heavy police deployments, vans that are stationed outside now guarding churches in this area. So it's really, really become a very frightening time for churchgoers and people of the respective churches here in the area of Pongola. Eben.
Ayanda, is this, one wouldn't say normal practice, but is this accepted that churches in that sort of area, their pastors and so forth, and their members are involved in witchcraft as well?
Well, you know, I wouldn't say so, Eben. I mean, this is just before, you know, the churches were operating, the churches were going on, you know, there's quite a number of churches in that area, possibly 6, I think we saw, if I'm not mistaken, yes. And so the churches have been operating as normal. They've also do a lot of community work as well, pastors in that area. So it's only now that this incident, of course, has happened, that we've seen the community just turn around and wanting to go out now, Eben, and sadly attack churches, even those that are not associated with. I mean, this church that is in question is the St. John's Apostolic Church, but now we are seeing community members attacking or threatening to attack other churches that have really got nothing to do with this incident or the situation at hand. So it is really, really an unfortunate situation. You know, Eben, yesterday, just an example, there was a community meeting that was held in the afternoon, and you know, in community meetings there would be a short prayer before the meeting begins. They wouldn't even hear that. They did not even want to get any pastor or anyone from any church even opening a meeting in a prayer. That is how tense the situation is. They will not accept anyone or any churches, and it is Sunday. From after Saturday, tomorrow it's going to be Sunday, and we doubt that any of the committee members will be able to go to their churches this Sunday.
Finally, before I let you go, Ayanda, just a quick one. Provincial leaders are expected there today. Do you think that they'll be able to help simmer tensions a little bit and get people calm going into this weekend?
Well, that is the plan. That is why, Eben, they've called an emergency cabinet. All the MECs led by the acting Premier, Peggy Nkonyeni, are making their way here. Their meeting is scheduled to start at around 10 o'clock here at the municipal offices. Thereafter, they are then going to go to the Nojana township, and the attempt is so that they can engage with the community. Obviously, they'll then be able to give them an update on what has happened in court today with that appearance of the pastor that we're expecting shortly. And obviously, hopefully to speak about the incident and try to bring about peace and calm to this area. I mean, the biggest thing now is the threats of the destruction of public or state property. Even there were threats that the community wanted to go burn down a clinic, to burn down schools. So they want to go and speak to them about that. The community, just to urge them to please give the police time to continue with their investigations, and just so that there is peace peace in the community, because people are unable now to go to work. But I tell you, the situation is really, really terrible at the moment. As I said, it's really literally come to a standstill in that township. Even transport as well, there's a problem because they were smashing taxis and they were smashing motorist cars. So it's really become a difficult situation for residents living in the Ngojana township.
Thank you very much. Ayanda Nhlongwe will keep us updated on this developing story throughout the day, as provincial leaders are expected to go in there and appeal for calm to the, angry members of that community who are claiming that a 4-year-old boy was killed by a pastor for muti purposes. Let's now take a quick look at what you are talking about on social media. Of course, you can send it to @SABC Newsroom. That's where we are. BBG says, marijuana legalized in South Africa. The odds are looking good. Belowtheline.co.za. Of course, we had Below the Line in the studio just now. Damon Adams says, there's no reason why cannabis can't be grown anywhere. It's safer than green potatoes. Yes, if you eat it, not smoke it. Ashwi says, they should see how much decline in Twitter fights there is after weed gets legalized. Ha ha ha. A laugh there. And there you have a beautiful picture. Marijuana making criminals out of honest people since 1937. That is one of the views. It says legalize it and stop incarcerating innocent people. That one from Weed Relief. Those are some of the views that you have. Of course, the discussion today is the process of legalizing cannabis in South Africa. The discussions are well in Parliament now. The bill is being proposed and we are well on our way. So let's take a quick look at the front pages of the world now before we carry on with the show today. The papers in Israel and Europe are looking at the attacks in the Gaza Strip, where nearly 100 people have been killed, 86 now we can tell you. And then papers from South America are, of course, still reporting on Argentina advancing to the 2014 World Cup final. That takes place on Sunday night. Now, as football fans from around the globe get ready for the 2014 FIFA World Cup final between Germany and Argentina on Sunday, let's take a quick look back at what's been described as the most controversial final in World Cup history, the 1986 World Cup final. The same two teams came head-to-head to lift the game's most sought-after trophy.
Behind the German defence, he's not offside. Briegel isn't able to catch him. Burachaga holds his nerve to win the match for Argentina. Now the South Americans are determined to enjoy their lead. In the final seconds, their magical trio, Valdano, Maradona and Burachaga, tease the West German defence. Maradona skips past two defenders and appears to be fouled by Schumacher inside the area. But the referee doesn't blow for a penalty. Instead, it's a free kick right on the edge of the area. Maradona can crown the victory. His free kick beats the wall, but not Schumacher. It matters little. Argentina are 3-2 winners. 8 years after their first victory, they have regained the world title. The madness in
revered as one of the great finals of all time. Let's hope on Sunday night we have something similar and not the dreary affair we had when the Netherlands played against Argentina earlier this week. It was very defensive and not a great spectacle to look at. But then again, we probably all wanted to see the 7-1 result that the Brazilians and the Germans gave us earlier in the week. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back with more after a short little break.
The shortage of nurses places those nurses who are working under such pressure.
To have one registered nurse looking after a ward full of patients, of over 40 patients, is unreasonable.
But Africa has made tremendous progress. In the year 2012, there were only 50,000 children. 50,000 children too many, but only 50,000 children that died of measles in the whole of Africa, compared to 330,000 in the year 2000.
For all your health issues, join Dr. Sello every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. CAT.
A very warm welcome to you at home. This is Afro Showbiz News, the show that brings you all things art and entertainment from around the African continent. Tunisian rapper Ben Ahmed, better known as Clay BBJ, has been released after spending 2 weeks in prison. The arrest came after he was accused of insulting security and violating public morals. The songs sung by the artists criticized the current situation in Tunisia. That's Afro Showbiz. Catch us every Saturday evening at 7:30.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. NUMSA. The Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa, SABC, has warned that the ongoing metals and engineering strike is likely to worsen performance in the sector. Production data released by Statistics SA shows a 3.7% year-on-year decrease in manufacturing production in May. The National Union of Metal Workers has in the meantime rejected employers' demands of an assurance that the union won't strike on any issue during the term of wage settlement. The union has been consulting its striking members within the sector on the latest multi-term wage offer from employers affiliated with the union. A 51-year-old pastor will appear in the Pongola Magistrates Court today. Police are yet to charge the pastor arrested in connection with the discovery of the mutilated body of a 4-year-old boy in a church. The KwaZulu-Natal cabinet, led by the Premier, and a heavy police presence are also expected in court. Eugene de Kock will have to wait another year before his application for parole is reconsidered. Justice and Correctional Services Minister Michael Mashuta announced yesterday that the 65-year-old apartheid-era police death squad commander's current application had been denied. The minister said the families of some of de Kock's victims had not been consulted during the parole process and said the complications in the process have highlighted policy changes that need to be made. Nearly 100 lives have been lost in Israel's air assault on the Gaza Strip. The death toll has risen to 86 since Israel launched Operation Protective Edge early on Tuesday to halt cross-border rocket fire by militant groups. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, a further 570 Palestinians have been wounded in the 3 days since the military operations from air and sea began. No Israelis have been killed by the hundreds of rockets fired from Gaza at southern and central Israel. All those stories are available on our Facebook page. You can also find them on our Twitter page. Given, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Anine. Very good morning to you once again if you've just joined us shortly after 9:30. Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, has demanded that more than 100 community health workers arrested in Bloemfontein be released and charged. Charges against them dropped, rather. The health workers and members of the Treatment Action Campaign were arrested for staging a sit-in at the health department. Workers want a meeting with the Free State MEC for Health, Benny Malakwane, to bring to his attention what they call the failings in and the collapse of the Free State health system. Now, for the latest, we cross to our reporter in Bloemfontein, Konelo Legafola. Good morning, Konelo. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you and good morning to the viewers.
Just brief us on the latest situation and what's actually happening in this case.
Yes, the latest is that the situation is normal even at Bophelo House, the headquarters for the Department of Health in the Free State. But all we can say is that 86 people are expected to appear in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court today after 60 of them were arrested in the early hours of yesterday and some additional 26 were arrested by midday yesterday. So they are due to appear at the Bloemfontein's Magistrates Court being charged with illegal gathering. So that is what we can expect to see happening today. But all I can say is that the situation is normal. Even when I had that chance to speak to the spokesperson for the Department of Health, Mr. Mondli Mvambi, he said everything is normal and it's business as usual.
Now, the issue of temporary and contract workers also seem to be a concern. Is this the reason why COSATU has jumped in the fray here?
It's a serious cause for concern, given the fact that the patients that they are used to visiting at their homes or various homes, I'm sure they are suffering a lot, seeing that these people are giving them some essential services and some good care with them, by giving them some medicines, by bathing them, giving them all sorts of comforts that the patient would require from anyone who is a health caregiver. So one would imagine that the situation is very much volatile for those patients that are in their various places of stay or in their homes, seeing that about 86 of the healthcare workers have been arrested. So this is a serious blow in that regard.
Cornello, the accusations are quite strong. They talk about the failings of and the collapse of the Free State health system is the accusation that these health caregivers or workers are putting forward. Is this the case? Is the Free State health system down and out?
One cannot really say that, but there is surely a serious challenge that is taking place in the health department in the province. One example is Pinomi Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in the province, where we have seen in the recent past weeks that there were big sufferings in terms of warmth in the hospital itself, seeing that the boilers were not working. And the reasons that were cited for that particular problem of the boilers was that the boiler makers or the company that was responsible to handle and maintain that was liquidated in recent months. So that is why there's a problem of warmth in the hospital, the problem of hot water, where we have seen nurses having to boil water with kettles for patients. There were no blankets, enough blankets. The patients were bringing themselves their own blankets from their homes, and there was not enough linen. It was the problem, again, of them being clean. So that was the whole situation that brought maybe the Free State Health into this predicament, whereby it is being labeled that it is a collapsing situation.
Canela, the protest that's going on now, is it affecting caregiving and health systems in the province?
One can attest to that it is really creating a problem, seeing that protest itself or the picketing that happened in the night of yesterday or in the night of Wednesday when it was going to be Thursday. It was a very serious one where we have seen 86 people being arrested, and that thing in itself is a serious blow, and it's bringing the situation into a very difficult one. One can say that it's a very difficult situation. One can imagine at any workplace, if 86 employees can be arrested, there's going to be a serious shortage of staff which will provide services to the communities, which will provide services to their clients, which will provide services that are required. So it's a serious challenge that we're seeing at this present juncture, but the Department of Health in the province is adamant that everything is under control and that the situation is normal and that they are doing everything in their power to normalize things in the department, as we have heard even the Premier of the Free State. Because every time when these people have been marching, led by the TAC in the province, they have been demanding to see the Premier, other than wanting to meet the MEC himself to discuss their issues or their challenges.
Canelo, thank you very much for that update. Of course, Canelo will keep us updated as to what happens with the story there in the Free State today. But let's take another look at what you are talking about on social media right now. Second Chance says, Eugene de Kock killed a lot and does not want to reveal all, but I think in the spirit of reconciliation, he can be spared. Tamsanga says, Eugene de Kock committed those crimes against blacks in the name of the apartheid state, not on his own. AJ van Dort says, Annika Larsen, has anybody asked FW de Klerk what his views are on parole for Eugene de Kock? Tommy says, Eugene de Kock should never come out of jail, ever. And Laurie says, Steve Hofmeyer, why are you so cranky? Is it because Eugene de Kock didn't make parole? Of course, Steve Hofmeyer saying the stem at any boss last week to much consternation amongst certain segments of South African society. But let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page and move on a little bit. Today, there you can see that 5 residents of Westbrook, north of Durban, will appear in court after being arrested during a service delivery protest. You can also read more on residents in Manyacheng in the Eastern Free State who are refusing to vacate the municipal land they're illegally occupying despite a court order. And there's also more on how Gauteng Premier David Makura says the newly appointed provincial e-tolling system assessment panel will consider all proposals on how to find solutions to the contentious issue. You can find all of those stories and more on our Newsroom Facebook page. Yeah, we'll be back after a short break. Don't go away.
Accra is a beautiful city of contradictions.
Funerals in Ghana are colorful and flamboyant. Ghana coffins are functional coffins made by specialized carpenters. These colorful objects, which have developed out of figurative palanquins, are not only coffins but considered real works of art. Each year, festivals and durbars are held in various parts of the country to celebrate the heritage of the people.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
United States President Barack Obama has expressed sadness over the shooting at a U.S. Army base in Fort Hood in Texas. A soldier opened fire on fellow service members at the military base, killing 3 people and wounding 16 others before committing suicide at the same post.
I want to just assure all of us that we are going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. Any shooting is troubling. Obviously, this reopens the pain of what happened at Fort Hood 5 years ago.
We urge you to stay with us here on AM News on Channel 404 on DSTV with myself, Elvis Preslin.
And me, Kendall Makhamati.
We'll be back at the top of the hour, so do not touch that remote.
That's AM News, daily at 10 a.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. We're about to wrap up the week by looking at what's coming of what will be another cracking sporting weekend. Now, we're joined by a senior man from our sports desk, Harry Willifeed, this morning. Good morning, Harry. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks for having me on the show.
I suppose all roads lead to the Maracana on Sunday night, with all discussions being Germany against Argentina. I think that's where it's at this weekend, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. It's the free-flowing style of the German football team against the passion of the Argentinian football team. I mean, if you look at previous results, just the form. Even if we take the 7-1 drubbing out of it, and we look at that German side, they are so efficient and they attack from all angles. That midfield of them are so strong. Argentina's defense in the last, especially in the knockout phases, has been excellent.
Yeah.
So can they keep the rampant Germans at bay? That's the question. And then another thing, Mick Jagger. who will he support? Because according to the Brazilians, Mick Jagger is the jinx of the World Cup. Whoever he supports, he supported Portugal, then he went for England, then he went for Italy, and then he was wearing a Brazil shirt at the Brazil game.
So everyone that Mick Jagger supports goes out immediately.
So we can take all the technical stuff out of the way, or all the analytical stuff out of the way. Whoever Mick Jagger supports
is going to lose.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's quickly talk about the standing of this match and sort of the history and the pantheon of what's gone before. This is really the biggest night of the career of Leo Messi, yes. I would think, because he not only does he want to lift the trophy for his nation, but it goes about the pantheon of greatest and greatness in football. And if Leo Messi does not win the World Cup for Argentina, he'll just be another Argentinian number 10 that tried, wouldn't he?
Yeah, look, he's trying to follow in the footsteps of Maradona, who has been hailed as the greatest soccer player. I mean, debate between Pele and Maradona.
Yeah.
But the greatest Argentinian soccer player. Messi is the best soccer player in the world, according to me. You'll have discussions between Ronaldo and Messi.
Yeah.
But Messi, according to me, is the greatest football player in the world. But his team is so reliant on him to make it for them. So, I mean, if you look back in 1990 was the last time Germany, then West Germany, played against Argentina. That was a bit of a funny game. It was hectic, and Argentina got a lot of criticism for that game.
It was very physical. They kicked them about a little bit, but I suppose
this Argentinian team is not the same.
No,
I've got a lot of respect for this Argentinian team in the way they conduct themselves on the field, but unfortunately, is the pressure going to be too much for Messi?
They say Argentina has Messi, Germany have a team.
Yes, that's correct.
that's where we leave it for the World Cup. But let's move our discussion now to closer to home for us. Harry, it's a small matter of cricket. We got beaten in the week by Sri Lanka after a great victory in the first game last weekend. How do you see this series pan out, and how does it look forward to what we want to do in Sri Lanka over the next couple of weeks?
It was so uplifting to see the way we played on Sunday, and then so disheartening the way we played in the second game. And that's the old story of South African sport. South African sport in general. One day we're on a tremendous high, the next day we're on a tremendous low. And they've had psychologists, and we can't really figure it out why we're so inconsistent. But I think the team itself is a very good team. Yeah. It's a well-balanced team. Unfortunately, for what Jacques Kallis has done for this country, he's a great cricket player, but unfortunately, I think he must go back to domestic level and prove himself there before he gets a chance back into the one-day squad.
So you're not calling on him to retire, step down and go gracefully? It's like, go back, score some runs, and we might take it to the World Cup.
If he wants to play in next year's World Cup, he must prove himself on domestic level, because he had two chances now, and clearly there's something not right there. So if he wants to play for South Africa, but then he must prove himself.
He just looks off the pace. He looks off the pace. He looks like he's just not there. And being a batsman is probably the most difficult thing. But he looks injured, Harry. He's walking gingerly. He can't bowl. Can we afford? No matter how great he is, can we afford to carry a guy like this when Faf is sitting on the sidelines?
We can't afford to do that. I think they wanted to see what he does here, and unfortunately they took a risk. Him carrying an injury, he's not able to play as an all-rounder. And he's batting, he's seeing the ball very late.
Yeah.
Especially if they bowl straight onto his pads. It seems to always get caught LBW.
Yeah, it's the straight ones, even against the spinners, that puts him in a bit of trouble. We're not going to talk about England and India. It looks like India's all over that. I want to talk Super Rugby quickly. It's the final league sort of weekend. A couple of big derbies here in South Africa. But I suppose all roads leads to Newlands, and the Sharks against the Stormers. The Sharks really need a big result, possibly a 5-pointer.
Yeah, they'll have to wait to see what the Crusaders Islanders game, what that result will be in the morning. So, but, for momentum's sake as well, they lost against the Free State. The Cheetahs seem to be their bogey team. With all the talent in that team, the Sharks team, and Jake White coaching them, that team should have been top of the log without any question.
Yeah.
They haven't fulfilled the
Is it
promise
maybe a
they've had.
question they peaked a little bit early in the season, played all their good rugby in the league phase, and now starting to just drop off in performance this week against a Stormers team that really look up for it, and I think they want to repay the favour that the Sharks did to them a couple of years ago when they were playing for a home semi-final, and the Sharks gave them a good old-fashioned hiding at Kings Park.
Yeah, unfortunately for Stormers supporters, the Stormers seem to play their best rugby when nothing's at stake. But a lot of teams, I mean, the Cheetahs and the Lions, they play their best rugby when nothing is at stake.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night, once again, they will play their best rugby. But if the Sharks want to be the top dog in the competition, they will have to beat everybody that comes at them, and whatever any team throws at them, they must beat them. Otherwise, they don't deserve to be in that position.
It looks like they're going to have to do it the hard way again, Harry, by having to travel all over
there. Yeah. And it takes its toll. You can't win a competition like that. I mean,
No,
the
you
statistics, if the home team win more than 90% of the finals in Super Rugby, in the finals.
Quick one, Chris Froome, our beloved Chris Froome.
Unfortunately, 2 crashes.
2 crashes and out. Were you surprised that he could still walked out of the Tour de France? Normally, if you're a great defending champion, normally if you're a great defending champion, they put a splint on your leg and you ride home in a broken leg. Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
I've seen those guys crash and they stand up from the most amazing positions and they just carry on. They've got a never say die attitude. So he must have been seriously injured. But I want to talk about, the doping in cycling.
Yeah.
No, we've had a couple of cases before the tour started again. But then you see the crowds watching this event. People are engrossed by this event.
Yeah.
And I think we have to look at maybe it's because they've got such good doping systems.
Yeah.
They catch somebody all the time. So maybe they've got a good doping system.
That's the flip side of the coin, is that cycling suffers maybe because it's such good doping systems. There sports like tennis and other sports, a big cloud have been over for more than a decade, but the sports governing bodies, they do very little about doping controls. Even the players are calling for stricter doping controls in tennis. So maybe you've got a good point there, Harry. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Evan.
Harry Olivier, senior man from our sports desk, giving you a little insight into what will be a cracking weekend. It'll be cold all around the country. So wrap up on the couch, put the heater on, make sure you've got the warm drinks there, and watch sport. That's what I'm going to be doing this weekend. Newsroom is broadcast every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. The show repeats at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also live on YouTube at that time with the whole show available on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.